Oh, it's just Jord.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Little Nightmares theory video. Today we're going to be talking about the Ferryman and why he does what he does and who he may do it for, and hopefully discover more information about the Ferryman. With the release of the Little Nightmares 2 trailer, we can now explore more information on each of these characters, using the trailer and maybe some interviews that we have seen since the initial trailer. So enough of the introductions, and of course there are going to be spoilers for the game Little Nightmares, Very Little Nightmares and the comics. Anyway, let's get into the theory. So who is the Ferryman? So the Ferryman is a character from Little Nightmares lore. We don't actually encounter him in game, but we do see pictures of him around the moor. He has a long jagged face or mask with a long brownish trench coat and hat. He has a very big build with huge fingers. It's safe to say his appearance isn't anything less than strange. By Little Nightmare standards, he fits right in. At the moment, most of his lore comes from the 2 released Little Nightmares comics, which is backed up by the photo that we see in the moor in the ladies' quarters right at the end of the first Little Nightmares game. He is known for doing what his name suggests. From what we can see of him in the comics and on the photos, he ferries the children to the moor in a wooden rowing boat, but that's not all he does. In comic 1, we witness the story of the North Wind. This comic is very interesting for the Ferryman as we witness him morphing. He can change his appearance to fool children into being able to capture them to take them to the moor. There is a bit in the comic 1 where it confirms that the Ferryman is in competition with the North Wind over the children. The North Wind states to the child and his sister that he is chasing in the comic, "Leave you be, where's the fun in that? To say nothing of the wager I'd lose, even though my adversary is a bit of a cheat." So with that being said, it's very clear that the Ferryman plays a bigger role than we realise in Little Nightmares despite not seeing him. Without him there would be no children in the moor, so does that make him a good or a bad character? As he saves the children from the North Wind and the world outside the moor, but he also takes them to the moor, the same place where a lot of bad things can happen to the children, from being caged and captured by the janitor, to being put in a guest stew by the chefs, to even becoming part of the live menu for the guests. So, why does he take them to the moor? You could say he works for the lady, and leave it as that. But what if I told you that I believe if anyone put 6 in that suitcase, it would have been the Ferryman? Let me explain. In both the comics where we witness the Ferryman taking the children to the moor, he doesn't hurt them. He tends to be there to stop other things getting to the children. Example, the North Wind and the Man in the Mirror. We even see him taking 6 to the moor. Granted, she's tied up, so they're going unwillingly, but I'm not convinced he is entirely bad. At the end of the first comic where we see the child is explaining the story about the North Wind, it says, "And so a deal was struck, shelter, warmth, where little things hide away safe from harm." So when he took the child, did the Ferryman warn the child on what the moor was like? That's why it says, "where little things hide away safe from harm." The Ferryman seems to be taking away the power from the monsters outside the moor, or the North Wind at least, and taking them to the moor so they have a chance of survival. It's like once they get there, all he can do is warn them about the moor, but once they arrive, they're on their own. But if that's true, is he working for the lady? He must be, right? How else could he know where the moor is going to be, as the moor only comes up once a year and never in the same place? There is also a picture in the first comic where the lady is shown looking into the mirror and taking off her mask, where we get told the narration, what is she hiding and what has she seen? What's interesting is that we find out through her eyes that she is looking at the Ferryman rowing a boat, bringing 6 aboard the moor. So does the lady know that the children on board the moor? Or does she just leave them be unless they interrupt her as she turns them into gnomes? Is there a possibility we could see the Ferryman in Little Nightmares 2? If the game is set before the first Little Nightmares, I believe we could. In both the comics we never see him on the moor, it's always outside in the world of Little Nightmares. In fact, there is a part of the first comic where we see Six getting caught in the city. If you've seen the first comic, Six seems to be getting away from something or someone, and as she's deciding to run in the comics, the Ferryman appears and starts to point to her. At this point in the comic, the narration says, "You search for the shadows, but the shadow finds you first." And we see people around her pointing at her now too. So with this being said, could this be how we first get introduced to the Ferryman in Little Nightmares 2? Maybe he becomes a collector, searching for little lost things. As we know, this world that we're going to experience is a lot larger than Little Nightmares 1. So could we see him out and about? Or will the game end with the same conclusion as the comic? What if at the end of Little Nightmares 2, Six runs away because of the death of Mono or losing the final battle and runs from that current situation and gets confronted in the crowd of people, and thus the Ferryman greets her to take her to the moor? If my timeline theory from the previous video is correct, we don't see Mono anytime after Little Nightmares 2, so that means either something's going to happen to him or he stayed where he was. On the Bandai site, it states that Mono sets out to discover the dark secrets of the signal tower and save Six from her terrible fate. But what if the ending is really discovering how Mono could not save Six, and in the end could have him saving her meant sacrificing Mono himself? But even if my timeline theory is incorrect completely, there are many possibilities that end with Mono still being dead at the end. And I believe that the statue is a representation of this. Maybe Six gains the power but can't control it, as we see her struggle with it a lot in Little Nightmares 1. Who's not to say that the statue isn't really an insight to how it's going to end for Mono, or how Mono ends up feeling in the game? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's my theory on the Ferryman. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As usual, if you like the video, hit like, comment, subscribe. If you've got a theory yourself, make sure to comment below. And if you want a theory explained, or you want me to dive into a specific topic within Little Nightmares, or any other game for that fact, make sure to drop a comment below and at me at the same time. And as usual, ladies and gentlemen, have a beautiful morning, day or night, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you all in the next theory video. Bye! Little sound.